We'll just do it. There we go. We might have a little synth. I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out as we go. But we
I
are
like
live.
it.
We are live. So I wanted to do this. I wanted to say what's up to my boys, Rich and Sean. I've been working with these guys for a couple years now, and we were on our fantasyguru.com roster coach live stream on Tuesday, and they made me aware there's going to be some NASCAR content coming up this yeah, NASCAR 2024, baby. That's what Russ's memory says. Jeff Gordon, 1998. But we are here with Rich Maletto and Sean Engel. You guys are going to be doing some NASCAR stuff on fantasyguru.com this year. So we're not going to reveal the secret sauce of how you guys have found winning ways there, but I did want to just, I'm a curious cat, so we're going to talk a little bit about what this looks like, DFS, sports betting, kind of the fun stuff behind the scenes, and we'll get you guys out of here. So, Sean, quick introduction. I mean, usually you're behind the scenes producer, Sean, but you got a nice little button up for us today. So what's going on, man?
Yeah, just in here, getting myself all psyched up and ready for NASCAR season. It's going to be many months. It's going to be a grind, but it's a grind I've been looking forward to seeing again now that the off-season's about wrapping up here. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Rich, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just got the Senior Bowl on in the background. My notepad handy. Got it recording. So when we're done here, I'll be going back and kind of grinding on some of that, making some notes. Other than that, man, just getting ready for NASCAR. Hey, we got cars on the track tonight. I do think we will see cars on the track tonight.
Cars on the track tonight? For what?
The exhibition race, the Mexico Series is doing a special race there at the LA Coliseum. They converted the LA Coliseum into a racetrack the last couple of years. This is the third and final year of the official contract, so we may not see it again. But they took out the football field, put a racetrack in, and we've been racing there as an exhibition race to start the season. And so we have heat races tonight for the Cup Series, qualifying for the Mexico Series. And then tomorrow we have the last chance qualifier, the main event, and the main race for the Mexico Series, which we don't normally do heat races and last chance qualifiers. This is kind of a hat tip and throwback to local dirt track racing.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. All right, so let's start at the beginning because Russ is a very basic-minded NASCAR guy, Sean. When does NASCAR start? When does it end? What is the like? There's a standings. I know that there's a weekly races. That's my basic format that I have. So give us a little more context of what NASCAR looks like here.
All right. So right now, especially because Rich mentioned it, we have the Clash at the LA Coliseum. This is kind of like the exhibition race to unofficially open up the season, but the real regular season begins with the Daytona 500, and from there, it's a 36 race season. 26 races will be the regular season, and that basically determines the drivers that will get into the playoffs. That encompasses a lot of the main season, takes you all the way up towards around August or September or so. And then for the last 2 months or 3 months, going into basically the beginning of November, that's the playoff time, and that determines the champion. So it's all based on race-wide performance, which drivers actually finish well in each of the 3 stages of each race in order to get playoff points and regular season points. And then from there, it's an elimination style format for the playoffs, and that basically keeps going round by round. Every 3 races, usually a group of drivers gets eliminated, and then it's a 4-driver winner-take-all in the last race of the season to determine the champion.
4-driver? Oh, that's like hockey with 3-on-3, where it's just insanity, right?
Oh yeah, except it's basically all the drivers for themselves within that final race, and whoever finishes best is the champion.
Got it. Rich, so preseason, are we doing like with NFL, obviously, we're like, all right, I like Jamar Chase this year. He's got a good setup around him. Are there systems in place? I mean, I know from watching an F1 race, there's like, tires and teams and pit guys. And like, I'm sure all that matters. System matters for everything, right? Do drivers change teams? Do they like get traded in the off season, or is this like they're kind of with who they're with?
Yes and no. Like, there is no trades. Well, I should say never, but there are really no trades. But you do have, they're all independent contractors, and that goes for the individuals on the pit crews and the shops that build the cars and everything like that. So to your point, chemistry is absolutely a part of it, from crew chief, especially with crew chief and driver. And you'll see teams constantly make Chase, for example, they changed crew chiefs, I believe, this year for Chase Elliott. He's still driving the number 9 car, still driving for Rick Hendrick, HMS, but they've made some personnel changes. Do we think this will make an impact? Absolutely. You'll see guys come from crew chiefs they'll bring up from some of the lower series. We'll talk about trucks and Xfinity. Think of it kind of like minor league baseball and getting called up to the majors type of thing. So you'll see like Chase and his crew chief were dominant in the Xfinity series. Well, they only brought up Chase and left the crew chief or something similar. We see this all the time. So that matters. In addition to that, each year, the manufacturers, Chevy, Toyota, Ford, they make adjustments, sometimes on motors, sometimes on body. We have a new nose this year, I believe, for everybody but Chevy. I'll have to look. Sean may have to correct me on that, but we've got a new nose piece.
Definitely Ford and Toyota. They have new body types and models completely this year.
Yep. So that changes things. So that gives us kind of a wild card. And honestly, NASCAR is very cyclical, which you'll see throughout the year. You'll see through the first third, there may be 1 or 2 teams that are dominating. And then as we kind of evolve to the next part of the season, they start to kind of fade and other teams start to come up. And it's similar to football in that way, but you start to see that. And when you're talking about a lot of technology here, right? It's driver and machine. Both of them have a big role here. So if teams find something helpful with the machine that can help all the drivers or that particular driver, and so you start to see some fluctuations. There's a lot for Sean and I to talk about with driver changes this year.
What do you mean team? How? So with F1, right, I was watching this and it was like they were kind of sort of helping each other, but then when it's like there's 2 guys in front that are on the same thing, they're like going balls to the wall trying to like, crush each other. So I mean, there are clearly brands that stick together. Is there like a behind the scenes like, all right, we're trying to get this guy to win, I'm gonna like bully this dude out? Is that like a conversation, Sean, or is this like random?
So as far as the team aspect goes, NASCAR is a team sport. There's definitely different sorts of teams and organizations that group some drivers and crew chiefs together. Like, say, for example, Hendrick Motorsports. It has 4 teams. It's a Chevy-based team, probably the lead Chevy-based team out there. But then you also have a bunch of double-car teams or single-car teams. Like, there's also Spire Motorsports, for example, which is a 3-car based team. Or with Toyota, you have Joe Gibbs Racing. That's a 4-car organization, or Legacy Motor Club. Joe Gibbs.
Joe Gibbs. Yep, same Joe Gibbs.
Yep, that same one. Who's arguably been maybe more successful in NASCAR than he has been in football. You could make a debate about that for sure, but all the teams have different drivers and such.
All right.
I'll give you a perfect example, Russ. Penske with Ford and the Wood Brothers. Okay, Wood Brothers have a huge history. They are a single car team. They've even gone years where they haven't raced a full season. Okay, but they're sharing engineering and equipment and things like that with Penske Motorsports, who has won championships. In fact, they have the champion from last year in Ryan Blaney. So there is some sharing of information, even with Penske and Wood Brothers, even sharing of a building and equipment, but they are 2 totally different entities. But then you have, within that Penske brand, you have Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. And to your point, team orders aren't as much of a thing in NASCAR as what you would have seen in Formula One. So even though Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano may have been battling door to door, first or second, there was no, we're going to help this guy and let him win. The only time you really see that is when, and it's getting complicated in the weeds, as you get into the playoffs, if they're trying to help someone get playoff points or stage points to help them get the opportunity to get into the playoffs, that's about the only time you really see teammates kind of helping each other outside of Daytona or Talladega, where they literally are pushing each other.
Got it. Okay. All right. So, beyond sort of, so you guys watch this, you have an idea who the guys are. You're kind of like, all right, I got a vibe here. When Russ turns it on, he's like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. And you know what we have for a guy like me? We have a Discord. We have NASCAR. We have NASCAR for DFS and sports betting. And so during the season, right, I'm gonna go into the Discord and be like, all right, Rich, or I'll tag you both. I'll be like, all right, dudes, what the hell's going on here? Who is Ryan Blaney? Who is Chase Elliott? And then, you know, we, so hold on. I'm gonna bring up FanDuel real quick because they have, the odds here, right? Now, this is for the Cup Championship, right? But I'm guessing week to week they're going to have odds for the races, right? As well, with similar odds. And so I'm going to be like, boys, I want to put $10 on Chase Briscoe, and I want him to win so I can win a lot of money for not a lot of money. And you're going to say, don't do that most times. Or maybe not. So break it down. Obviously there's longer odds on these. There's a ton of cars in these sort of races. It's not like an NFL game where it's one-on-one or whatever. But, you know, what is sort of the week-to-week on, like, NASCAR?
Well, you have to kind of take it week to week because, first of all, there's many factors at play. You got the drivers themselves. Each one of them have different skill sets that make them good or bad at certain kinds of tracks. Like, say, for example, Michael McDowell. He's a driver that's best known for racing well at super speedways and road courses, but on an intermediate oval, per se, he's not going to be one that you're going to look at in order to win a race. But you also have your favorites, of course, every week. And it's just the tracks themselves. There's just so many wild factors to play. So the best way in order to really get better at it is to kind of just keep up with it week to week, know the personalities, know the drivers' skill sets, know the teams, which teams usually have the most budget behind them, which teams are maybe just considered the underdogs, per se. And really, you just got to kind of get a feel for it, and that's the best way in order to get better as a player with NASCAR.
Rich, any thoughts here?
Honestly, you need to tune into us. I'm not trying to blow smoke and break our arm, patting ourselves on the back, but there's things that we dig into and research to help along with that. I'll give you an example. Martinsville. Hendrick Motorsports has an incredible dominant history across different car types. I mean, we've had multiple generations of cars over the last 10 years. They have been dominant consistently, multiple drivers, multiple everything else. So when we go to Martinsville, regardless of everything else, the Hendrick cars are on our radar. So to your point about picking some longer odds, momentum, just like we see in a football game, I think, Russ, you and I talked about this one time on the coaching stream, where you could see the momentum shift from an interception, a big play, a sack, something like that in football, where at that moment in time, that 13-point lead all of a sudden looked like it was automatically in danger just from that one play, right? You kind of see that in NASCAR where William Byron, he's in good equipment. He hadn't quite been there. He had definitely shown some flashes of being excellent, but he's young, he's unproven. He just kept getting top fives, getting a win here or there. So you got to kind of take note to that. And to Sean's point, if you're not watching week to week or kind of following along week to week, you don't really realize, holy crap, we've had William Byron get 7 top fives out of the last 10 races. Like, this is really massive. And he only has one win. We better start. The wins are going to start coming, you know. And oh, by the way, he's in a Hendrick car and we're at Martinsville. His driving record's not great at Martinsville, but we have a lot of momentum. We've got a lot of team history. Those are the things that kind of Sean and I bring that, in all fairness, if you haven't been following the sport for years, or you're not willing to really dive head deep. And this sport has a history, not as long as the NFL, but this goes back to the bootlegging days. I mean, there's grassroots fundamental history with this sport all the way through. So you kind of need some help with that. That's what we're here for.
Awesome.
Bingo.
I love it. Well, I remember going to Charlotte, North Carolina to visit friends, and it's serious down there, fellas. And I grew up in the Northeast, so I knew about NASCAR, and we had like go-karting, but it was more about like quads and dirt biking up when I was growing up. But down there, I mean, they got kids on the tracks training. I was telling Sean about this a few weeks ago, but it's real serious there. So I mean, are there like rookies of the year? Is there like a Garrett Wilson that's like coming out of nowhere that kind of emerges and you're like, oh, who's this guy? Or is it kind of like most of these guys, have been around for a while? Sean?
Most of the drivers usually have been around for a while, and that usually tends to be the majority of the favorites most of the time. But there are some drivers that are younger and up and coming, and they might not exactly win the championship or make a huge impact as a rookie, but they can be competitive. And for last year, that was Ty Gibbs, because overall, he just missed the playoffs, and if things had gone a little bit differently, he would have been right there in the picture as well. But you also have drivers like, say, Zane Smith, who is a rookie coming up this year driving for Spire. And some of these rookies, you kind of have to watch them, because for a while there, the rookie competitors didn't look like they were competitive. But over the last couple of years, you're starting to see a bit of a resurgence of some of these younger drivers actually kind of take the limelight and actually be a bit of a factor at times now.
All right, Rich. So I'm a DFS guy now. I'm going into the DFS Discord on fantasyguru.com, and I'm saying, hold on. So I got to pick 5 guys now.
6
guys aren't gonna. 6 guys. 6 guys aren't gonna win here. What the hell do I do? How do I do this? Because I know in MMA, right, there's like a 12-fight card, and you have to pick 6 guys, and there's a lot of ties. But with NASCAR, there's what, like 30 guys in a race, something like that? So how do you go about, it's like scores for top 5, top 10 finishes. Do you get scores for like crashing into the post and stuff? How's the scoring? What am I doing here? How do I figure this out?
So the DFS scoring does vary a little bit from site to site, like we've seen. All right. But as a general rule, there's some basic things you can go off of. Points for position. So if you finish first, it's 40 some points. You finish last, it's 1 point. That usually is taken into consideration for it. You also have fastest laps. Every lap, there's a car that puts down the fastest lap. On DK, I believe that's worth a quarter point, 0.25, I think. I'd have to double check that. It's in that ballpark. So every lap, there's a fastest car lap. Well, if you have the driver that keeps putting down fast laps, those points add up pretty quickly for you. On DraftKings especially, what they do is a points differential. So if you start 20th, but you end up 10th, you get a point for that point differential. That's huge, because you're getting a 10-point swing from being 20th to 10th. So let's say that 20th place, or that driver that was in the tier with the 20th place people, they're probably in the bottom third or so in pricing, call it say $7,000. You get that $7,000 player who ends up finishing 10th when they started 20th. I'm not going to say you broke the slate, but you got a huge leg up on everybody else, because those extra 10 points can be significant. A good scoring driver on DK, 60, 70 points. I mean, you will get weekends of 100, 120, but if you consistently get your top 2 or 3 scores to be in that 60 point, 50 point range, you're going to be in good shape to potentially cash.
All right. Sean, break it down for me. How am I getting that 46 points? And then I guess, are you sometimes happy if a guy finishes like 18th or 20th, if they're like way down in the rankings?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First of all, it depends on the types of drivers that you're starting. Like, say you have your favorites. You want to have like your top tier guys go out there and basically try to go forth and win the race. You want them to not just win, but you want them to dominate if possible, because then you have a dominator right there. And one of the important factors that Rich, I think, did not really touch upon that much that I will touch upon here is leading laps is very, very important. So you want to have those dominators that basically lead laps, because over time that could also really add up to your score as well. And with place differential, it matters because you want to have drivers that go through the field. Even if they don't win the race or don't finish top 10, say, for example, it's a driver that's starting around, like, say, the 32nd position. He finishes inside the top 20 around, like, 17th or so. That's still a good performance. And some of those bargain price drivers towards the bottom of the ladder, that's where they come into play as well. And it's not just the top guys you need to succeed if you want to have a good lineup. You need everybody to basically have a good day for their own standards, and that all adds up. And especially with crashes, I also want to mention this too, just because crashes, particularly for FanDuel, because FanDuel also counts laps completed by drivers as well. If a driver crashes, that's also going to make them lose out on a lot of points and basically kill your lineup right there too. So that's also important to keep in mind.
All right, so I watched this F1 race, right? I was in on, I forget his name already. He was one of the most famous guys. Maybe you guys remember it. Not Verstappen. It was another guy. And he started... No. Oh, well. But I knew his... What's that?
Lewis Hamilton?
Yes. So I picked him, right? They fire the thing. First turn, he gets bullied, and he's in like 40th place, and my bet's done. And I was like, what the hell is... So it's kind of, that's the high variance, right? That's part of the fun, though, I feel like, if you're on the other end of that, you're like, oh, good. Like, I didn't bet on Lewis Hamilton, and now he's 20th. There's no way he's kind of catching up, Rich. So, I mean, that's part of the sport, right? Like, there's some weeks where it's almost like, basically, that's the equivalent of a running back rolling his ankle, right?
I would say it's even worse. I mean, we've had these discussions in Discord. It's nothing. We can, with 10 laps to go, look at a lineup. And I tell folks, do not follow your lineups. It's not worth it. You will have soul-crushing emotions. I mean, there's no other way around it, because it's not, I'm telling you, Sean and I know our stuff, and it's not uncommon with 10 laps to go to have the guys we pushed as dominators, the guys we pushed our core lineups, to have 4 of those 6 guys be in the top 10. And that's usually pretty massive because of how the money breaks down. But then all of a sudden, they're racing for position, and dude sticks his nose in there, and now, wham, we lost all but one of those guys. And it was in the last 10 laps. We went from, I mean, and if you go through the Discord chat, you'll hear them talk about it. Dude, I'm winning $5,000. Dude, I'm winning $10,000. Dude, I'm in the top 5. And then come back, and I didn't cash at all. I ended up 350. Like, it's even worse than the rolled ankle, because half the time
you get those points.
More than one.
Yeah.
Right.
You're locked in. Yeah. Okay. Sean, that sucks, huh?
Oh, yeah. And if you think that's stressful, imagine playing DFS on Daytona or Talladega or Atlanta, when all it takes is, even on the final lap, one driver makes a mistake, causes a big one, boom, you're completely wiped out right at the end in a matter of seconds.
Or you could be that lucky guy that's like, I stopped watching because I was in damn near last place, and then by the end of the race, because of the 2 big wrecks, I ended up cashing. Like that's Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta now for you.
Oh, I love it. All right, guys. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer, but I did want to have you on and just get a little preview of the season. So in terms of content on fantasyguru.com, which is, of course, where you guys are going to be, doing all this stuff in our Discord, in our, betting, DFS, you guys are going to be covering all that. Oh, quickly, betting. So joking around, me putting the 100 to 1 bet, like my $10 on the 100. I mean, there's top 10 bets. There's top 5 bets. There's a bunch of different stuff that I'm sure you guys will break down. It'd be pretty fun too to kind of have a top 10 ticket of a random guy, and he's like 8th with a lap to go. That's probably pretty fun, right, Sean?
Oh yeah, definitely. Betting is a lot of fun when it comes to NASCAR, not just because of the deep odds with winner bets. I mean, that's fun in itself, where you can call the winner and basically win, but it still gives them a fair chance, and it gives you a reason to root for them too. But even with betting, there's also props where you can basically pick the best driver to finish out of a group, or there's head-to-heads. Two drivers go head-to-head. You place a bet on which one finishes better. There's even manufacturer-based bets too, where you can basically pick which driver manufacturer is going to end up winning the race, or have the best finishes. So there's a bit of variety when it comes to NASCAR bets, and that's a fun aspect in order to really get into as well. So
Love it. Rich, any final thoughts on sports betting before we get out of here?
So one of the thing, and you guys cut out, so I don't know if Sean mentioned this. We kind of like to split up our money on the bets because NASCAR can be so random. It's we take a lot of pride of kind of calling. I wouldn't say calling the top five, but the winners we suggest finishing in that top 5 or 6. It's really not uncommon when Sean or I give you 4 or 5 drivers to bet on to win. If you see all 4 or 5, or 3 of the 4 or 4 of the 5 in the top 5, 6, 7 spots, like that happens pretty regularly. We like to split. So we'd say take that $100, go ahead and put, say, 20 on that guy, but then let's go ahead, or maybe 30 or 40, and let's go ahead and put 5 on this one, and let's put 10 on this one. And personally, I like to split it up kind of based on the odds, right? Because I know for the favorites, you're going to see about plus 250, plus 300 as a kind of a regular. You really won't see too many times where it's rare when it's minus money. I would never recommend doing a minus money bet on NASCAR. That's just my opinion. But you see those 2 to 3 plus 2 to 300. Yeah, you're going to want to bet 10, $20 on that because your payout's only going to get you 40, 50, right? But you can turn around and only bet $3, $4, $5 on the guys at plus 1,400 and make more than that money back, if you know what I'm saying. So I kind of like to split it up. I also like to do some of the top 5s and top 10s because you're right, Russ. It's fun to take that $20 and it's a plus 200, plus 300 bet for the guy to finish in the top 10. And he's running 15th all race and just keeps hunting. Like, it's fun because you're not just watching the leader in the front, right? And you have a bigger gap, right? You have a bigger kind of room for error. They don't have to win, they just kind of have to be in fact, Carson Hocevar last year for trucks for me was a prime example of that guy. He was always competing for wins. Just bet his top 5s and his top 10s. He was going to be there. It made it fun.
That was my big takeaway from F1. It was like super fun to watch the guys coming up, and they have really good graphics now in 2024 of like, oh, he just moved up. Oh, he had the fastest lap, and it's like having that. So yeah, that's super fun. But yeah, as you guys can see, I'm screen sharing right now. Weekly we have a cheat sheet. We have write-ups on the site. We also have sports bets in the Discord. So that's some of the good stuff you can expect from NASCAR this year. And I believe you guys got the okay to start a podcast, right? Is that correct, Sean?
that is correct. We are currently in the process of working on one. I know it's kind of like a worst kept secret, especially if you've listened to, like, say, the end of Jeff Mann's last One Man's Opinion podcast where he teased this too. But yeah, we are working on one between Rich and I where we're going to plan in order to break down all the races from a preview perspective. Throw a little bit of betting, a little bit of DFS there, cover some of the news headlines, and more going into each and every race weekend. So look forward to that, and we'll be sharing more details when we get there.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on, and look forward to a season where I don't have to know anything and I can place bets down and sweat your picks. So for Rich Maletto, Sean Engel, the Fantasy Guru staff, come hang out with us over on our Discords, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Really appreciate it.